First in the news, Senator judges pressed the House prosecution over its witnesses and the conduct of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial. Senator Robin Padilla urged prosecutors to avoid presenting witnesses with pending cases and questioned whether the panel was being one-sided. Lead prosecutor Jervil Ruistro said none of their witnesses has a pending case, adding that the prosecution cannot be expected to remain neutral. The exchanges came as NBI Director Melvin Matibag testified that investigators are looking at 20 persons of interest who could help identify the alleged hitman linked to Duterte's reported threat against President Marcos.
Sana hindi one-sided ang ating persecution. Ano?
Yun ang code for the day. Prosecution should really be one-sided, di ba? Because yun ang task ng prosecution. The defense is also one-sided because they have to prove the defense, di ba? So both sides should be one-sided.
Kaya merong prosecution is to establish the case. Kaya may defense is to defend the innocence of the respondent. Siguro mas nakakapagtaka pag naging neutral ang prosecution. At lalong nakakapagtaka kung i-defend namin yung respondent.
Ayun. So I was trying to comprehend kasi what Senator Robin Padilla is trying to say. And I think the context there is that he's saying na bakit yung mga nasa kulungan ay hindi pwedeng mag-join dun sa impeachment trial, which I think he was referring to the two senators there. And then parang napag-gano na yun. So I don't know what he's trying to say there. But of course, on a layman's term or public's perspective, alam natin na kapag prosecution or neutral ka, you really have to be on one side to protect your side,
because that's their job.
Yes.
The prosecutors prosecute and defense. So again, context, we're trying to figure that out, but also at the end of the hearing yesterday, Senator Cheese also kind of recommended na both prosecution and defense switch up their spokespersons because the lawyers might have a hard time separating yung merits of the case
in the court and during interview.
Yun. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know if they're going to take him up on that suggestion, because right now it's Attorney Tolosa for prosecution and then Attorney Poa for the defense, correct?
Although he said naman, si Presiding Officer Jesus Codero, na wala pa naman daw nakakagawa on both teams na nagkakamali. Pero sabi niya, we err on the side of caution, which is fair naman to say. But of course, going back to what happened in the past 9 days of the discussion of the Article 4 of the impeachment trial, diba? Itong allegations on grave threat, etc. Si NBI Melvin Matibag has said that he had contact, meron silang tawag dito, contact na or under investigation with those, he narrowed it down into 20 or less than 20. No, na that not necessarily mean na sila yung hitman, but they have supposedly knowledge or supposed knowledge dun sa alleged plot. So this could be one of the Vice President Security Group, uniformed personnel, etc. But of course, yun nga, lagi naman natin sinasabi dito sa mga discussions natin na if we are talking about impeachment cases or impeachment court, yung pagpapatunayan kung sino yung papatay, etc. Parang kumbaga, it's not that relevant anymore because, again, this is not a criminal case.
And yung isang line of questioning ni Attorney Venluan, yung what specific crime would an NBI subpoena cite, yung sagot ni Director Matibag doon was basically, yun na nga, when it comes to the impeachment trial, it's no longer necessary to prove that she hired someone, because for him, yung no need to investigate betrayal of public trust, even if they find the alleged person contracted, because the betrayal of public trust was consummated when the Vice President admitted she allegedly contracted a killer and that person agreed.
Well, it's good that you mentioned Attorney Vinluan because I remember seeing the glimpse of the press con of the prosecution, and Congressman Terry Redon said that unwittingly, Attorney Vinluan, sabi niya ganun, has contributed daw to para magkaroon ng mas maganda yung prosecution, dun sa depende yun sa mga magiging question niya. Anyway, tapos na yung Article 4.
Yes.
They will move forward by July 28 doon sa Article 1, which is the misuse of confidential funds. Abangan
That's
din
what
natin.
the subpoenas for Violeta Constantino and Nenita Camposano are for. So they will appear next Wednesday, July 29 now. All right. Moving on, Vice President Sara Duterte remained the top choice in Pulse Asia's latest presidential preference survey for the 2028 elections. Duterte garnered 49% support, while Naga City Mayor Leni Robredo placed second with 26%. The Vice President has earlier confirmed her intention to seek the presidency in 2028. In the vice presidential race, Senator Bongo led the survey with 27% support, followed by Senator Robin Padilla with 21%. For the senatorial race, Padilla emerged as the top preference with 48.4%, narrowly ahead of Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto, who received 47.9%. The survey was conducted through face-to-face interviews with 2,400 Filipino adults from June 28 to July 3, as well as on July 6, 2026. Interesting also, because that other survey was started on the day of the beginning
trial,
of the impeachment trial also. But if I remember correctly, from last year's elections then, I don't think anyone named Senators Bam Aquino and Kiko Pangilinan. But as Director Matibag mentioned in the impeachment trial also, diba, surveys are a snapshot. They're not the whole picture. You just get a feel for sentiments in specific areas or specific groups of people.
That's why at the end of the survey, it would always say na we had 1,200 respondents. Parang yun lang yung kinaya, di ba, nung survey na yon. But go ahead.
No. But again, if you're, that's the thing with surveys, diba? If you agree with the surveys, good for you. If you're not happy with the surveys, that's why you go out and vote.
Yes, that's right. It's good that you pointed out that, because it's also good to note which dates these surveys were conducted.
Yes.
Diba? So for this one, for Pulse Asia survey, it was conducted from June 28 to July 3 or 6, if I'm not mistaken. Kasi there are some reports it said 3, there are some reports that it's 6, so we need to confirm that. But it's that time frame, no? And we all know naman that the impeachment trial started July 6.
Yes.
So kumbaga, we won't see, we cannot see the effects yet of the impeachment trial on this survey na lumalabas recently. Plus, of course, it would also help kung dun sa other side of the fence or the opposition if they will declare na kung sino talaga tatakbo sa kanila. Kasi as of now, the only one who technically declared that she would want to run is Vice President Sara Duterte.
Yes.
Yan yung clear for the voters.
And I think Mayor Leni Robredo has repeatedly said she's not running for a national position.
All right, in other news, Senator Rodante Marcoleta pleaded not guilty before the Sandiganbayan 3rd Division to charges of plunder and the alleged violation of Presidential Decree number 46 during his arraignment on Wednesday. The arraignment proceeded after Marcoleta's legal team withdrew its earlier motion to quash, allowing the anti-graft court to formally read the charges and accept his plea. The charges stem from the alleged receipt of a 75 million peso campaign donation during Marcoleta's senatorial bid. Former Congressman Mike Defensor also pleaded not guilty before the Sandiganbayan 4th Division to an alleged violation of Presidential Decree number 46. The charge is linked to the alleged 30 million peso donation he gave Marcoleta for his Senate campaign.
Martin Romualdez, sunod yun na. Kasi Bunoan, tatlong pa na ba? Nasa hospital pa rin. Si Marcoleta, 1 linggo lang.
Well, of course, arraignment marks the formal start of the criminal trial proceeding. So after this, there will be pre-trial, etc. So this is part of the process. And I think August 10 if I'm not mistaken, yung pre-trial that will start. So this is in connection again doon nga sa campaign donation which interestingly, Senator Marcoleta admitted himself on
Yes.
national television.
He was arrested July 6 and kasabay na nga yung mga co-accused niya, sila Espiritu, former Congressman Defensor, and Viray. And we saw former Congressman Mike Defensor saying si Manuel Bonoan has been in the hospital for 3 months, si Senator Marcoleta, 1 linggo lang. But also, I believe Bonoan has, I think, stage
Several
4 chronic kidney disease,
conditions,
prostate cancer, yung mga nalista when he was arrested also. And yung kay Senator Marcoleta, it was chest pain, hypertension, and I think he also developed mild pneumonia na yun na nga yung sinasabi na he will be fit to travel when he's done taking his antibiotics. So parang hindi naman napapabayaan.
But of course, if you're talking about former DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan, a lot of people are actually divided on, the administration or the ombudsman getting him as the star witness,
yes.
diba, of the flood control case scandal. So, ang sinasabi nila to, is he the least guilty or what can he offer, diba? What information can he give for the case, para makatulong doon sa flood control project? That we don't know yet. But since he was the former DPWH Secretary, we know meron siyang information that he could, substantial information that he could give para nga makatulong dun sa investigation.
And with this one pala, this is still in the 3rd division of the Sandigan Bayan. The 2 other counts of violation of the Presidential Decree number 46, it's handled by the 1st and the 4th divisions. All right. Meanwhile, the peso again matched its record low, closing Wednesday at 61 pesos and 75 centavos against the U.S. dollar. Stronger greenback and renewed Middle East tensions drove investors to safe haven assets. The weaker peso, higher fuel and power costs, and the coming wage hike could also push prices up. Supermarket Group President Stephen Kua said any increase will depend on when manufacturers and retailers pass on higher costs. Meanwhile, the Foundation for Economic Freedom warned the 85 peso wage hike could force some small businesses to cut jobs. The first tranche takes effect July 25. This is going to be rough because we are so heavily reliant on imported fuel. So this... It's not looking...
I know.
It's not looking, for as long as things are volatile between with the US, Iran, all those things
Everything.
affected po tayong lahat dito. Plus yung mataas na interest rates ng US Federal Reserve. And everything is just...
So kumbaga parang if you look at it on a bigger
Yes.
perspective, here you are, the prices of basic commodity increasing, not just because of the oil price hike, but you have minimum wage hike, you have electricity costs,
Yes.
diba? You have dollar exchange rate, yan yung mga imported raw materials, etc. And sinasabi nga din ng Philippine Amalgamated Supermarket Association President si Stephen Kua, I was able to talk to him yesterday, that the fresh produce daw yung unang makakatanggap or mararamdaman natin na may pagtaas because of higher delivery costs. Because syempre, oil price hike, diba? And then siguro later on, the manufactured, yung mga canned goods, processed food, yun yung mga will later on take the effects of this situation. So, everything's going up. Ang
Buckle
height
up.
na lang natin yung hindi to mataas.
Ay, hindi na, since high school pa yata akong
Stop
hindi
na
na
siya.
tumangkad sorry.
Yeah, but later today, we'll be able to talk to an economist,
Economist,
diba, para mas mapag-usapan natin itong effects na ito. So, don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break. Welcome back to our program. You are watching Morning Matters here on One News. The The prosecution said National Bureau of Investigation or NBI Director Melvin Matibag and 2 NBI agents presented sufficient evidence to support the grave threat allegation against Vice President Sara Duterte. For more details, let's bring in mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Amy, gaano raw ka-satisfied ang prosecution sa ebidensyang iniharap nila para sa grave threat article?
Yes, Angela, malayo na pero malayo pa yan ang saan ni House Lead Prosecutor Jervy Luistro pagdating dito sa pagtatapos ng kanilang presentasyon sa impeachment article number 4 or yung doon sa grave threats and destabilization ni Vice President Sara Duterte laban nga sa pamahalaan. Kung babalikan lang din natin yung mga nagdaang araw na trial para nga dito sa kanilang presentation of witnesses, nabuo na raw kasi ni NBI Director Matibag yung kwento na totoo nga yung pagsasaad ni Vice President Sara Duterte ng kanyang mga banta laban sa Pangulo at hindi na nga lang daw ito simpleng pagbabanta kundi may plano ng araw na talagang i-assassinate itong Pangulo. Napakinggan natin mismo doon sa naging presentation din ng prosecution pagdating kay Director Matibag na mayroon na nga raw leads na makakapagtukoy kung sino nga ba yung mga taong kinontrata mismo ni Vice President Sara Duterte para nga kitilin ang buhay ng Pangulo. Nasa around 20 individuals na raw ngayon kasi they started with different sectors, men in uniform, kahit yung mga miyembro ng Vice President Security Group ay tinanong nila kahit sa Davao Death Squad. At yun nga, nag-trim down ito nga National Bureau of Investigation para nga mas matukoy nila kung sino yung tao nga kinokontrata ni VP Sara. Naniniwala din daw kasi ang NBI na hindi lang isa o dalawang tao ang kinausap ni VP Sara hinggil nga dito sa isyong ito. At bukod pa dyan, nasabi na rin naman ng prosecution na doon nga sa kanilang naipresentang witnesses ay talagang authentic yung video press conference ni Vice President Sara Duterte noong November 2024. At hindi lang yan, meron pa daw kasing mga instances prior to that particular press conference na talaga nagpapatunay na itong si Vice President Sara Duterte ay may pattern of violence at meron niyang behavior na talagang nais niyang pagbantaan ang Pangulo.
Well, Amy, how important it is for the prosecution to establish the point, yung sinasabi mo kanina, na merong kinausap, merong ng hitman, itong issue na ito. Because I would always remember, the prosecution would say na this is not a criminal case, it is an impeachment case. Therefore, hindi na kailangan na patunayan kung meron ba talagang hitman na kinausap si VP Sara.
Angela, kung makikita kasi natin yung naging presentation din ay ang hinahanap din kasi ng karamihan ay meron na nga ba talagang hitman at kung natukoy na ba talaga yung hitman. Pero ang sinasabi din kasi ng prosecution pagdating nga sa kasong ito ay betrayal of public trust daw kasi ang pagbabanta nga kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. So yung betrayal of public trust, isa yan sa mga kasali doon sa mga impeachable offenses to impeach high rank official. So yun yung pinupunto dito ng prosecution dahil nga pag talagang nagbanta ka sa Pangulo ay parang binitray mo na din daw ang public trust.
Amy, meron na bang tugon ang prosecution doon sa plano na if ever, kung gusto ba nilang i-adhere yung sinabi ni Presiding Officer yesterday, Cesca Litton-Kalaw, regarding the spokesperson? Meron na ba silang tugon doon?
Yes, Angela, nabanggit din ni House Lead Prosecutor Jervy Luistro na ang plano nila dito ay pag-usapan muna kung ano nga ba yung maaari nilang gawin particular to this instance. Kasi kahapon nga ay nagkaroon ng konting reminder itong si Presiding Officer Cesca Litton-Kalaw pagdating nga doon sa spokespersonship ni Attorney J. Tolosa pati na rin ni Attorney Michael Poa naman for the defense, saying na part kasi to ng sub judice rule kung saan nga hindi ka pwedeng maglabas ng merits of the trial. At ang nasabi dyan ni Representative Luistro, pag-uusapan nila yan as a whole team for the prosecution, pero ultimately, it will be on the decision of Attorney J. Tolosa kung ano nga ba yung pipilian niya, to be a private prosecutor or a counsel for a prosecution or maging spokesperson nitong prosecution team na lang.
At ano pa yung inaasahan natin na gagawin sa pagpapatuloy ng impeachment trial sa susunod na linggo?
Yes, Angela, dahil nga magpo-proceed muna tayo na sa State of the Nation address which will happen on Monday and then may kontrasona sila on Tuesday. Technically, walang impeachment trial on those days. Pero on Wednesday, we are expecting na meron na nga magsisimula na mismo ang prosecution team pagdating dito sa presentation nila sa confidential funds. Narinig na rin natin noon na nais nilang ipatawag dito si Violeta Constantino at si Nenita Camposano na former land bank managers para nga daw simulan yung talakayan mismo dito sa confidential funds. And according nga dito sa rule on sub judice ay bawal muna silang maglabas kung ano nga ba yung total merits of the case. Pero kung maalala din natin doon sa mga nagdaang Justice Committee hearings, ito kasi yung confidential funds kasi yung tumutukoy doon sa over 600 million pesos confidential funds ni Vice President Sara Duterte pagdating as the Secretary of Department of Education and in the office of the Vice President.
All right, thank you so much, mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Meanwhile, the impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte have yet to significantly affect her standing in Pulse Asia's latest presidential preference survey for the 2028 elections. In an interview with The Big Story, Pulse Asia President Ronald Holmes said Duterte's preference, approval, and trust ratings have remained largely unchanged since the firm's previous survey in March. Holmes said the Duterte political brand, along with the narrative that the family is being politically persecuted, continues to resonate with many Filipinos. He added that public dissatisfaction over economic conditions may be helping sustain Duterte's support ahead of the 2028 elections.
There's this particular identity and brand that the Duterte name exudes. It's a political brand that is associated with supposedly discipline, purportedly decisiveness.
Discipline?
And of course, I'm supposedly discipline, allegedly decisiveness, and action, or resolute action. But of course, that's the brand. That's how they project themselves to be. And the other thing that they have played up fairly.
In other news, several areas are now under signal number 1 due to tropical depression Quiapo. Let's get the latest from Pag-asa weather specialist John Manalo. John, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Good morning po at ganoon din sa ating mga taga-subaybay. Itong si Tropical Depression Quiapo nga po ay nasa layong 950 kilometers east ng Central Luzon. May lakas ng hangin na umaabot ng 45 kilometers per hour at pagbugso o yung biglang paglakas ng hangin sa paligid nito na umaabot ng 55 kilometers per hour. Ito ay kumikilos pa west-northwest sa bilis na 20 kilometers per hour. Dahil nga po dito, kay Bagyong Quiapo ay nakataas sa signal number 1, itong mga probinsya ng Batanes, Cagayan kasama ang Babuyan Islands, Isabela, Apayao, Abra, Kalinga, eastern and central portions ng Mountain Province, eastern and central portions ng Ifugao, Ilocos Norte, northern portion ng Ilocos Sur, at papalapit po ito ng papalapit sa ating kalupaan. Ang babaybayin po niya ay papunta dito sa Babuyan Islands. Sa kasalukuyan, ito ay humihila ng habagat na nakakaapekto sa Mindanao. Pero habang papalapit pa po ito sa ating northern Luzon o sa ating kalupaan, ay unti-unti ay yung epekto ng habagat ay mag-shift po paakyat. Simula today hanggang bukas ay maapektuhan naman itong malaking bahagi ng Visayas, and eventually ay sa Friday to Saturday naman ay yung western section ng ilang bahagi ng Visayas at ganoon din naman yung western section ng Luzon. At bukod po dyan, gusto po natin na ipagbigay paalala o i-inform mga kababayan natin na ang pinaka critical na time na kung saan ito ay makaka-apekto sa atin ay simula po bukas hanggang sa Sabado, lalo na dito sa Northern Luzon. At yan po yung ating update patungkol dito kay Bagyong Quiapo.
All right, thank you so much, Pag-asa weather specialist John Manalo. Now, don't go away because Money Talks with Cathy Yang is up next to get you ahead of the markets. I'm Angela Lagunzad-Castro. Stay tuned to One News.
Good morning mga kapatid. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
Week 3 of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial saw a major ruling, new claims from the NBI and sharp questions from senator judges. The impeachment court allowed prosecutors to subpoena Duterte's bank and tax records in connection with the unexplained wealth allegation. NBI Director Melvin Matibag then testified that the vice president's alleged threat against President Marcos appeared planned and continuing. He said investigators have identified persons of interest who could help trace the alleged hitman, a claim the defense challenged along with the documents he cited. The week ended with senator judges pressing prosecutors over their witnesses and whether the presentation of the case was one-sided.
What do these developments mean for the case, and what should we watch for next? Joining us is lawyer and law dean, attorney J.V. Bautista. Good morning, attorney, and thank you for joining us here on Morning Matters.
Good morning, attorney.
Good morning, Cesca and Angela. I'm very happy to be here.
All right, the prosecution just wrapped up. Article 4, their last witness was NBI Director Melvin Matibag. How would you sum up both sides for prosecution and defense?
Okay, the prosecution did well. I think they're way ahead of this. But from the very start, I have always maintained na this is a case for the prosecution to lose. It's a very strong case. Remember that they conducted, it was a very long preliminary investigation,
Right.
or inquest, if you will, looking at all the evidence that they will need for the establishment of probable cause. Kaya nga, hindi pa naman, you cannot expect them to have all the evidence in their hands eh. Kasi ang kailangan lang nila during the investigation that they conducted was probable cause. It is only to determine whether or not the respondent probably committed the constitutional offenses, no? Outlined in our Constitution. There are 6 of them. I thought that it was a slow burn in the beginning. I was not in favor of the House managers putting up private lawyers and examining their first witnesses in the beginning. I thought that was going to judicialize the proceedings kasi these private lawyers are courtroom litigators eh. So, syempre, they will try to score points by taking advantage of their experience as litigators and will go into too many technicalities. Imagine, just for the purpose of, ito nakakatawa to just for the purpose of authenticating the electronic evidence, which was the video of Vice President Sara when she was saying that she contacted somebody to kill the President and the First Lady and the former Speaker. It took them 2 days. It took the lawyer 2 days. Fine. That lawyer was a pretty good courtroom lawyer. And if you are a client, you can get him. But not for this particular purpose. Congresswoman Jinky Beatrix Luistro showed that she can handle it. She showed it yesterday and the day prior when she was the one who examined the star witness. I will call him a star witness. Si Director Melvin Matibag, no? I thought she could handle it very well. At saka kasi this Congresswoman Luistro, being a politician, she would be in the better position to communicate popularly with the people, with the masses, with their constituents. Kasi nami-mix niya yung nami-mix niya yung language of the law, and at the same time she could translate it into something more popular. That is the advantage of politicians, no? House managers prosecuting it rather than private lawyers. Alam mo, natatakot ako pagka na-on board na dyan sila Lorna Kapunan. This is going to be a lawyers' tournament. The lawyers there are going to strut like peacocks. And they'll start using language of the law which is not understood by too many people. Okay, now, I think they scored big with Melvin Matibag. No? Kaya ko sinabing slow burn yung umpisa nila because they took too much time authenticating the video. But nung si Matibag na, they were showing videos left and right.
Right.
And no one was authenticating it.
Yeah.
And it was forming part of the evidence. You see the anomaly there, no? Yun naman pala, pwede naman palang hindi ganun katagal yung authentication.
Inauna na daw po kasi authentication.
Oo nga eh. Yung authentication kasi inuna, and it took them 2 days.
Right.
With one witness lang, yung NBI na cyber expert.
John Mark
And then the second witness took another 2 days. Ano? I don't know, he was trying to establish the investigation that they conducted. I think the problem there was because the prosecution in the beginning, seemed to be obsessed with proving the felony of grave threat and of yung sedition, inciting
to sedition.
These are felonies. When you speak of felony, these are crimes defined and penalized under the revised penal code.
Right.
Yun no? And when you try to prove a felony, you need to prove to the court beyond reasonable doubt to get a conviction all the elements of the crime. Ngayon, pagka ganyan ang approach mo kasi, it will be very easy for the defense to destroy your case. Kasi ang taas nung ang taas nung quantum of proof para to get a conviction beyond reasonable doubt. So yung defense, pwede na siyang mag-raise ng mga right to be informed of the charges against her, right to due process na akala mo ba threatened ang life, liberty and property of the Vice President? Hindi naman, so mabuti na lang, I think nai-steer na nila with Congresswoman Luistro to the proper orientation, What is this impeachment all about? It is not about proving a crime.
Exactly.
It is not. Because if you want to prove a crime, go to the MTC, the Metropolitan or Municipal Trial Court. Go there
File a
because
case.
that is the court which has jurisdiction over grave threats. No? Ngayon, what I saw BP Sara did was a proposal to commit the crime of murder. Yun But the proposal to commit a crime is not a crime. But it is a grave misconduct that undermines the dignity of the office and therefore constitutes other high crimes and also betrayal of public trust. Yun ang kailangan nilang i-prove. That was why I say that it was really Senator Risa Ontiveros, Senator Erwin Tulfo, and Senate President Tito Soto who were actually raising the proper questions regarding orientation. That they are not trying to prove a crime here. They are trying to prove a conduct so grave and abusive that the impeachable official must no longer stay in office. That is the purpose of the impeachment. Okay, that's the prosecution. I think they've done very well. I'm sorry. Lawyers tend to overtalk. That's the characteristic of lawyers. Let's go to the defense. They're not doing a good job. They are not.
Why do you say so?
They are sending the greenhorn lawyers in the cross-examination. A cross-examination is the soul of trial. When you watch a trial, it's boring to watch direct examination. I think it was so boring that the Supreme Court even decided, wag na kayo mag-direct examination, isulat nyo na lang yan into a judicial affidavit. Ganun na lang ngayon no? Kasi talagang aantukin ka lang dyan pinakwikwento mo, leading question, objection, hearsay, objection, left and right, no? Pero when it comes to cross-examination, that is really the exciting part. Because that is where you try to destroy the credibility of the witness and you try to show to the court that the witness should not be believed, is not credible. So, among us lawyers, when we watch good lawyers, yung talagang mga patika na naglalabanan, you try to watch the cross-examination segment. Kasi yan ang yan talagang bakbakan dyan That is an art. But I thought that for whatever reason, the defense panel was sending in yung kanilang yung kanilang mga foot soldiers, hindi yung mga generals. No? Ito si Binluan o si Narbasa. Narbasa carried a very prestigious name, but I think he's third generation. These are newbies, no? Even in the courtroom, sa tingin ko, yung courtroom conduct nila, hindi maganda. Ito si Binluan. You know, he's prone to making snide remarks. For his ego, it might be good for his own ego. Or maybe even for the morale of his panel members, no? Defense panel members. But for the case, it's not good. And even for the viewers, it's not good. Kasi nakikita nila, bakit ganito itong abogado na to? Kung ano-anong sinasabi, di ba? He could not conduct a really good cross-examination. Look at this, ha? Inobject ka na niya yung affidavit ni Las Cañas. Sabi niya kasi it has no signature and it has not been notarized. Good. Which means to say, any content of the Las Cañas affidavit cannot enter into evidence. Kasi hindi dapat paniwalaan eh. Ano? Because that's a private statement eh. Hindi notarized eh. Hindi man lang signed. So you cannot even determine whether that is really Las Cañas. Las Cañas was not even in the witness stand.
Yeah.
So, nung una, ino-objectan niya yun, ang ginawa niya, continuing objection, sabi niya. Congresswoman Luistro was able to outfax him, no? Easily. Kasi, sabi ni Luistro, well, this is part of the narration of Matibag. Si Cheese naman, as presiding officer, inallow. O sige, allowed ka to ask more questions. So she asked questions, and Matibag was reading from the affidavit, and Luistro was asking the read portion to be bracketed, as if it were already evidence.
Oh, well, hindi pa naman yun part ng even in pre-trial.
Dapat yun, kung magaling ang defense lawyer, hinarang na yun. Hindi pwede yun. Hindi pwede yun. Absolutely, hindi pwede yun.
Okay.
Sa trial, absolutely, ha? But what he did was put a continuing objection. Now, what is a continuing objection? It's an objection that you believe that the question should not be asked and are inadmissible. The answers will be inadmissible so that when you appeal, you can use it.
Okay.
Wala apilang impeachment eh.
Attorney, let me cut you there. To your point
sure.
earlier that you said that this is not a criminal case,
Yes.
it is an impeachment case,
Yes.
therefore yung establishing of grave threat is very important. Pero yung establishing kung meron bang mga kinontak na hitman, etc. is somehow irrelevant. Tama po ba yun? Pero po bakit ang NBI focused their cross-examination with the NBI Director Melvin Matibag on asking him, 'di ba, meron bang hitman, may kinausap ba, may plano ba yung Vice President? Your thoughts
You
on
are
that?
correct, Angela, no? In proving the commission of the impeachable offense of other high crimes and betrayal of public trust, you don't need to go into those details. It is enough that you have shown to the public that the Vice President is or was capable of thinking that she will get somebody to kill the President. That would have been enough.
Yeah.
No?
So bakit naging ganun yung posisyon ng defense?
Because the NBI was actually conducting an investigation on that matter. And the prosecution wanted the NBI to say it for its additional shock value. No? That's I think a technique on the part of the prosecution. Sige, dagdagan natin para magkaroon ng konting fireworks para ma-shock ang public.
And for the public, seeing na wala pang personal knowledge sa NBI, sabihin nila, ay, bali wala pala tong allegation na to because there's no personal
That
knowledge.
is the problem. When you overstate your case, sometimes it backfires eh. Kasi hinahanap mo yun, hindi pa naman pala nakikita. Di ba? Hindi pa alam ng NBI eh. So ang answer lang ni Matibag, well, we're still in the process of looking for that hitman. So hindi naman kailangan na yung hitman eh. There were a lot of things covered by Matibag which were actually surplusage. For the purpose of proving the impeachable offense, hindi na yan kailangan.
Right.
No? But I guess it's also because politicians and even private lawyers and defense lawyers and Cesca Litton-Kalaw would love to bask in the limelight of free airtime. Di ba? Kasi mga politiko sila, they need publicity as much as, they need air to breathe. That is the air they breathe, publicity. So, hinahayaan nila. If Cesca Litton-Kalaw were really a good presiding officer, he would be more, discriminating in finding out what the witness is going to say. Kung irrelevant na yan, corroborative lang, surplusage lang yan, pwede naman niyang sabihin, tama na, the examination is is over. O, senators, you can ask your questions na. Kasi it was more important for the senators to be able to ask questions than the lawyers. No? Kasi yung lawyers,
So are
simple
you
lang.
saying si Senator Presiding Officer Jesus Cordero is not doing a good job?
Well, I think he's doing a good job if his purpose is to become Senate President and to get elected in 2028. I think he was doing a good job. But as a lawyer myself and somebody who wants to get the impeachment over in the shortest possible time, because, you know, people are not going to have a long attention span over this. Di ba? Maiinip ang tao. Imagine, 92 days of trial. 62 witnesses. Can you imagine that? A witness like Mary Grace Piatos. You know, over na yun eh. Hindi naman na kailangan yun.
Attorney, speaking
Yes.
of Presiding Officer Chis Escudero, yesterday there was an exchange na there's no minority or majority. We are all senator judges. But as we've seen through the proceedings, is political neutrality too big of an expectation?
Well, that's the cloak of neutrality. They want to project themselves as fair and non-partisan. Maganda naman 'yon. Kasi kaya pa nga sila nagro-robe kasi nga fair sila. They're supposed to be judges. And a judge should have no prejudice. Kasi when a judge starts to show prejudice, inhibited na 'yan in actual courtroom practice, no? But in reality, they are not really judges because they are not lawyers, no? They are more like a jury. Alexander Hamilton once described, you know, he is one of the founding fathers of the United States. And the US is where we got our impeachment proceedings from, di ba?
Right.
Sabi ni Alexander Hamilton, impeachment is a national inquest on the conduct of public men.
Right.
Ayan lang yan. That in a nutshell is what impeachment is all about. Ngayon, itong pag-proceed na ganyan, pag-handle ni Escudero, pinagbibigyan niya lahat eh. Manifestation, Your Honor, from the lawyer. Okay, manifestation, and I'll give the same time to the respondent to make his own manifestation. Can you imagine how long the trial will take kung puro ganyan? What is a manifestation after all? It is nothing but saying something that you want the court to hear.
But having said that, attorney, based on what we've seen so far, are the senator judges behaving themselves consistent with their constitutional role, which is to be the impartial arbiter?
Well, if you will look at the conduct of the Cayetano siblings, my answer is no, no? The Cayetano siblings at saka itong si Robin Padilla, they have already revealed their true colors. No? In fact, parang I just heard one of them say, defense senator judges na, mayroong prosecution senator judges, and defense senator judges. At least insofar as these three are concerned, maliwanag na. They will vote for acquittal. Ano? They will not vote for conviction. So, less three na yan. I don't know if they can still keep an open mind. But the way they are speaking and behaving, ang liwanag na eh. There is not a single thing that they uttered in the halls of the impeachment court.
Pero susugan ko yan sinabi
sige.
mo. What about Senator Bongo and Mark Villar, which both of them didn't
Yes.
send dissent no doon sa subpoena
Yes.
ruling.
Oo.
So do you think there's a possibility there, an incline na if ever in the future may maiiba yung kanilang desisyon?
In fairness, the Villar siblings have not been talking too much.
Yeah.
So that puts them under a question mark, no? Kung saan sila
But
pupunta.
Camille was part of the senator judges who sent letters of dissent.
Oo, they were not. One of them.
Camille was.
One of them.
Camille.
So Camille. So,
Not Mark.
you know, I don't think highly of the Villars because they represent such a huge chunk of business interest. So to them, it's more business than serving the people. That's my own take. Forgive me for being so blunt about it. But that's the way I look at it. And therefore, the Villars are going to be transactional when it comes to this decision on the conviction of BP Sara. You know, the decision of conviction only a small percentage of that will depend on how the senator's conscience will work. Mostly, I think most of the senators don't have conscience. They don't. You know why? If they have a real, honest-to-goodness conscience, marami dyan umalis na nag-resign na lang o hindi na tumakbo senador. Because they saw what was happening in the country. Ang dami sa kanila involved sa flood control. They were actually stealing money. No?
Right.
And yet, andyan pa rin sila. And people keep voting for them. Two of them are already in jail. Di ba? So, that gives you an indication how the senators behave when they're in office. They're very entitled people. No? They think they're untouchable. And thank God, at least we have two of them in jail. I wish that there would be more. Kasi mas marami naman sa kanila talagang may kinalaman doon sa flood control. Like the presiding officer himself. Now, yung tanong mo,
Oo. Kung sa tingin mo ba, may pagkakataon?
may pagkakataon, there
na
will be
medyo
many
maiba
factors.
yung desisyon niya.
There will be many factors that will play into this dynamics. Ano-ano itong mga factor na to? Number one, how well the prosecution can prove their case. Kasi they have a strong case. But if they mishandle the presentation of witnesses and evidence, walang impact sa tao. Kasi lahat naman itong sinasabi nila, nakita na ng tao
Right.
So what they need to do is add additional impact so that the people will be convinced, corrupt nga. Talagang bastos nga. Talagang salbahe nga ito. Hindi dapat manatili sa pwesto. Yan. That's number one. Number two, kasi the politicians are also sensitive to public opinion. No? Especially with the forthcoming 2028 elections. Pag nakita nila that there is a very vast public disapproval now of the Vice President, kukonvict na yan. Kasi they will know that the Vice President can no longer make it as President in 2028. So what's the point of throwing your lot, your political lot? Now, the third factor there is political reality. No? Malacanang plays an important role here. After all, it was Malacanang that it was Malacanang that engineered the ouster of Cesca
Hindi naman
Litton-Kalaw.
daw sila nakikialam. Hindi naman daw sila
Separate.
nakikialam.
Of course, politicians will always have to give that veneer, di ba? Hindi, wala, separation of powers kami, ganyan-ganyan. But there was only one impeachment trial that arrived at a conviction, remember?
Yeah,
It was Corona. No? And in the case of Corona, sabagay, he was easy to impeach kasi wala namang mandate yan . However, nakialam ang Malacanang dyan because it was exposed later on by Jingo Estrada and Revilla, di ba? Yung sabi nila, nagbigay ng maraming projects for the senators.
Nako, that's a different
There's a lot to unpack
Yes.
with that. We wish we had more time, but thank you so much for making the trip to the studio and joining us here on Morning Matters. That was Attorney JV.
Thank you for
Bautista.
having me,
Thank
and
you.
I'll be very glad to share with you
Yes, come back
some more
again.
ideas whenever you call on me.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
and
much,
good morning to
Attorney.
your audience.
Thank you.
All right, more matters to discuss after this quick break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
The Philippine National Police said it is conducting an investigation into the reported incident involving police personnel and members of the media during law enforcement operations at a public assembly in Manila on July 22. For more details, we have mobile journalist Jazz Paredes. Jazz, go ahead.
Yes, Angela, naglabas nga ng statement ng Philippine National Police kaugnay na nangyari nga insidente involving PNP personnel at members of the media sa isang assembly nga na naganap sa Maynila kahapon. At sabi nga ng Philippine National Police, kanilang kinikilala ito nga nangyaring insidente at sila ay nagpatupad na ng initial or yung investigation regarding this. At ayon sa kanila, ay itong kanilang impartial investigation ay ang purpose nito ay mahanap yung mga facts and evidences para mas malaman yung mas malalim na nangyari dito sa insidente. At ayon sa kanila, ang kanilang investigasyon daw ay pinasiguro nila magiging fair, sila ay dadaan sa due process at magiging patas sa magiging investigasyon. At kung sino man daw ang personnel na makitang nag-violate sa kanilang existing protocols and procedures ay mahaharap sa appropriate administrative and legal actions. Sa ngayon, Angela, yan din ay sinuportahan ng NAPOLCOM sa kanilang inilabas na statement kaninang umaga. At ayon nga sa kanila, ay kagaya ng sinabi ng Philippine National Police, ay kung ang investigasyon ay lumabas na mayroong nilabag nga raw ang personnel ng kapulisan, ay mahaharap nga ito ay mahaharap sa nararapat na legal action. Sa ngayon, Angela, ay mamaya ay posible nating makapanayam ang PNP spokesperson na si Allen Rico sa isang media briefing mamaya at aabangan natin ang kanilang magiging karagdagan na pahayag kaugnay ng insidenteng yan.
At ngayon ba, ano pa ba yung mga iba natin naaabangan dyan sa Camp Crame?
Yes, Angela. With only a few days before the fifth State of the Nation address ng Pangulo ni PBBM, ay inaasahan din natin na magbibigay sila ng update sa kanilang preparation for the deployment sa SONA. At ang pagkaalam naman natin, Angela, they will be deploying to more than 20,000 personnel. And the last time na nakausap natin sila, we will be expecting na around 90% na yung nakalatag sa kanilang preparations. And ngayon, we will be expecting kung ano yung updates with their preparation, kung nagdagdag ba sila ng personnel, and if they will be expecting other procedures para mas ma-ensure nga yung safety and yung security ng mga dadalo. And Angela, we're also expecting na malaman na kung ano ba yung inaasahan natin ng mga road closures, ano ba yung mga daan na isasara, at ano yung mga kinakailangan bantayan, o meron ba tayong mga, sino yung mga grupong nag-signify na aasahan nating magsasagawa ng rally or kilos protesta sa araw ng SONA sa July 27 sa Lunes. Angela.
Alright, thank you so much, mobile journalist Jazz Paredes.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development said more than 1.5 million families have exited the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, or 4Ps, since 2022. In an interview with One News Political Beat, DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian said the agency shifted to a more data-driven approach, strengthening case management and upgrading information systems to help beneficiaries become self-sufficient instead of remaining dependent on government aid. Gatchalian also highlighted the government's enhanced disaster preparedness, saying the DSWD now maintains about 4.9 million family food packs nationwide, up from around 200,000 before 2022. He added that the agency has expanded warehouses and introduced specialized relief items, including maternity kits and ready-to-eat food packs. The DSWD chief stressed that the poor should not be viewed as dependent on government assistance, saying many work multiple jobs to survive.
What is the single biggest misconception Filipinos have about poverty that government policy still reflects?
I would like to say that when we joined the department, people always think that the poor, that they're lazy, and that they rely on government. Hindi totoo yan. Alam mo, Lord, when I was mayor, favorite part ng buhay ko na career ko siguro yung maging mayor ako kasi talagang hawak sa tao. But siyempre, maliit yung scope ko, Valenzuela. But now, I get to go to the farthest areas because development doesn't happen in cities alone, but you have to go to the farthest areas. I find myself in the tip of the Philippines, in a municipality that I, other hand, would not have visited if I were not secretary. Talking to beneficiaries, the poor works hard, they work doubly hard. May makakausap ka, nagtatanim sila pagtapos nila alagaan yung anak nila para may dagdag na pagkain. So hindi dapat natin nilalahat na ang mga mahirap ay nakaasa lamang sa gobyerno. Quite the contrary, they work 3 jobs, they work 4 jobs kasi alam nila pag hindi nila ginawa yun, gutom eh. Hindi ko sinasabi na wala tayong kaso na yung grant ginamit pang bili ng alak, pero merong way naman yung gobyerno para parusahan ka. Inaalis yan sa programa. So, I think that mindset that the poor cannot is that they are lazy, that they rely on government, that's a wrong misconception. In fact, they work hard and they work doubly hard because it's a matter of survival for them.
President Bongbong Marcos and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed plans to advance the Luzon Economic Corridor. The project connects Subic, Clark, Manila, and Batangas through improved transport logistics, energy, and digital infrastructure. The two officials also discussed opportunities under Pax Silica, a U.S.-led supply chain alliance aimed at attracting technology investments and high-value industries. The Philippines could host the initiative's first economic security zone in Clark. Meanwhile, Washington is committing more than $100 million in new assistance for infrastructure, logistics, and energy projects in Subic. Marcos and Rubio later reaffirmed the Philippines' U.S. alliance and freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. Stay tuned. Morning Matters returns after a quick break. Good morning. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
The peso matched its record low against the U.S. dollar on Wednesday, closing at 61.75 pesos to $1 amid escalating tensions between the United States and Iran. Data from the Bankers Association of the Philippines showed the local currency ended slightly weaker than Tuesday's close of 61.745 pesos per dollar. During the day's trading, the peso moved between 61.73 and 61.75, matching its record low first reached in May. Market analysts said investors remain cautious as geopolitical tensions heighten concerns over inflation and the global economic outlook, prompting continued profit-taking and foreign fund outflows.
Now, to help us unpack what these developments mean for the economy, we're joined by University of Asia and the Pacific economist Ronilo Balberan. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Finally, I'm here.
Yes, nice to see you in person because I would always talk on Zoom. Anyway, so the prices are about to increase, prices of goods, rather. And then, of course, this is not just about the oil price hike, but of course, we're looking at minimum wage hike increase coming soon. What else? Electricity costs, and then, of course, the dollar exchange rate. But before that, of course, let's talk about the peso. The peso has matched its record low against the U.S. dollar. So what are the main factors driving its weakness?
So basically, when you're talking about the exchange rate, you're always talking about the value of our currency and the value in relation to the other countries. So lagi siyang parang tango. So when our currency, the peso, is weakening, it only means that we are demanding more pesos to buy $1. So we need more than 61 pesos to buy $1. So just like buying a bread. So now, if you have more demand for that bread, then that bread becomes more expensive. So it only means that because oil prices are getting more expensive, and then we're trying to recover our economy, we're trying to recover the construction industry, then we will be importing a lot of these materials. And so by importing these materials, you need a lot more pesos.
Exactly.
And so there more dollars. And so therefore you demand more dollars, and therefore the price of dollar increases. And that's how you have the increase in the exchange rate. So, and ang ano naman yan, do you have supply of dollars naman? So, where we just recently have an increase in our BOP surplus, ibig sabihin yung inflow and outflow of dollars. But in general, our OFW remittances has actually slowed down from the 3% growth to 2% growth. So meron kang ganung perception already that actually our supply of dollars, even though the reserves are about to be challenged. So, and therefore, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, though they can actually intervene and release more dollars to the economy, para more supply of dollars will balance out the more demand for dollars, and therefore we can actually pull back exchange rate to 60. But they are not.
Are they intervening enough?
I think they are cautious, more cautious now because of what's happening around us. So they are not that willing enough to really intervene aggressively because we might actually run out of dollar reserves naman, which will have longer-term repercussions that will have huge negative impact on our economy. So parang ikaw yung nanay na, sandali, ano na ba to? Emergency na
parang
ba to?
budget na lang
Withdrawin ko na ba yung reserve na dollars para mag-60? So I think nandoon yung delicate balancing act of the BSP to intervene in this particular exchange rate movements.
With all the factors surrounding the peso's decline, how much of it is due to global developments and how much of it is driven by domestic factors?
Well, a lot of this is actually the uncertainty of what's happening. No? So everybody's speculating of what's going to happen to this Middle East crisis. No? So, and therefore, the oil prices are actually subject to speculation as well. No? So, in fact, bago naman nagkaroon ng February 28, March 1 attack of the US to Iran, there was actually global oversupply of oil. No? So, this is an artificial elevation of global oil price because we're speculating, is this war real? And when will this war end? And so therefore everybody's speculating, and when everybody's speculating, someone somewhere in the world is hoarding the supply of oil, someone somewhere is benefiting from that particular, and so therefore countries around the world are trying to well, where are my dollars? I need the oil. It's not as if we can actually produce our oil. So we really need to stock up on our dollar reserves. And the question is, if, for example, Trump says, this will definitely end in 2 weeks' time, then everybody can plan their lives. But there is no announcement of that. He's just saying, I might end it, I might not end it, etc., etc. And so a large part of that speculations around the world is really driving this exchange rate volatility in our country.
Kainis na nakadepend tayo dun sa white man, the White House.
Yes, because as soon as the American forces leave Middle East, then the oil price will drop because there's global oversupply. And there's really not that much increase in the demand for oil because everybody's shifting to solar, electric vehicles, etc. And there's very muted global economic activities, again, caused by speculation on the another side, which is the tariff. So therefore, global economy is somehow slowing down together with the other countries having their population being very, very old already and not giving birth anymore. So there's really not much economic demand, therefore no economic demand for oil. And therefore, when that particular speculation is wiped out, then your oil prices will go down and then we will all benefit from it.
Pero, go ahead. Weaker peso may be seen as a boon to OFW families, no, because they stand to get from local currency more, no, from local currency. But of course, which sectors are likely to feel the impact first?
Well, a lot of our sectors, because we have a huge budget deficit. We have a huge budget deficit. We have a huge trade deficit, and so if you're talking about our sectors, our business sectors, dependent on raw materials from abroad. So therefore, the higher exchange rate would mean higher cost of operation for them. And this higher cost of operation will be further transferred to our consumers. So double whammy on all the way to the final consumer, because products and services will be higher aside from, on top of our consumers already facing higher prices, higher transportation costs because of higher oil prices, etc., etc. So everything get messed up.
I know.
Because you have higher prices, imported prices, being multiplied by a higher exchange rate. No? So ang hope nga natin is, sana dumami yung OFW remittances para magano. But in dollar terms, our remittances have actually slowed down in terms of growth, no? So from 3%, nag-increase pa rin naman, pero from 3%, naging 2% na lang. So pero kung hanggang kailan yon, no? Hanggang kailan tayo magbabalance between the increase in OFW remittances in dollars times higher exchange rate versus higher oil prices and then higher prices of goods and services because we have higher logistics costs, higher power costs right now, and then higher oil prices. So I think yun yung dilemma that we are all facing now in terms of cost. On top of, okay lang sana itong lahat ng cost na ito kung if you have the government pump priming income generation. And what is that pump priming in income generation? That is infrastructure spending. And our infrastructure spending has actually slumped to worse than pandemic spending. Yung pandemic spending ng infrastructure natin, negative 26.
Right.
Yung
Kasi
infrastructure spending natin ngayon is negative 40. So, ibig sabihin ito mo, higher cost of living, higher cost of businesses, pero wala kang income push on this part, which is actually the role of government. No, counter-cyclical role of government, which is to pump prime the economy, add more money to the system so that the system can actually afford this higher cost of living and higher cost of business. So nawawala din tong part na to. So medyo double whammy tayo in this very difficult situation of 2026.
But also, since we are so highly reliant on global fuel prices, the initial agreement between the U.S. and Iran was supposed to give a 60-day reprieve. But I don't think it lasted for 2 weeks. Parang ang bilis lang niya. In terms of near-term projections, I mean, how bad do you think this is going to get? Do you see us hitting 63 pesos to $1?
Well, hitting 63 is not a doomsday scenario.
Okay.
So we still have one of the largest dollar reserves in the world, no? Cross comparison to countries, because it's measured naman in terms of how many months of importation activities can you afford with your dollar reserves. The absolute value of the dollar reserve does not matter. If I tell you $100 billion, what does that mean? So it does not mean anything. So the cross comparison across countries is you divide it to the monthly import bill. So right now we have around 7 to 8 months of import cover. No, ang threshold lang naman is 3 months. No? So and then you get into trouble. Then everybody will go to the streets and rally. So just like what happened to Sri Lanka in 2020 when they had negative 4 months of dollar reserves. No? So yun yung ano natin. So sa 63, I think we can still afford the basta meron tayong dollar reserve. So we were never affected by any oil spikes.
Okay.
Basta meron tayong dollar reserves. Pero nung naubusan tayo ng dollar reserves in the 1980s, then the whole thing spiraled all the way to hell. So,
But just a quick follow-up. You said 63 is not a doomsday scenario. For you, what is?
a doomsday scenario is when we run out of dollar reserves.
That's
so,
regardless of the...
If you run out of dollar reserves, then the entire nation, led by the BSP, will no longer have any control of the exchange rate. And the anatomy of that is when you run out of dollar reserves, exchange rate will skyrocket because everybody will speculate on the exchange rate. When it skyrockets, then inflation will skyrocket, then interest rate will skyrocket, and then wage rate will skyrocket, and then...
Kaya yung tinatawag nila kung kunyari, yung peso natin, pag yan nangyari, Mickey Mouse money.
Yes.
Diba? Ganun ang sinasabi. Wala nang value. But of course, I want to talk about the small businesses. No? How will they be affected by this? And especially those relying on imported raw materials.
So that's what I mentioned. No? So if they're relying on imported raw materials, and marami tayo so mga nasa manufacturing,
yes,
especially
so
food manufacturing, yung ibang natin because of swine flu, etc. We also import our pork, our chicken, our rice, etc. No? So if all this, no, from the manufacturing is the biggest sector, together with wholesale and retail trade. So yun ang two giants of our economy, manufacturing and wholesale and retail trade. And when you're talking about those two things, majority of that are food and clothing businesses. No? So, and if we have a higher exchange rate, yung mga margins that we're talking about now, so our MSMEs are dealing with net margins of 3 to 5%. And then if you have an exchange rate that will actually accelerate to 3%, 5% more on a monthly basis, then that will actually, kill them immediately. No? So, very, very important na ma-tamper mo yung, ma-cushion mo yung increase ng exchange rate. Now, 63 is very scary at that particular point, especially those MSMEs that are actually importing and then dealing with 3 to 5% na net margin. So
ang tendency niya mag-close down sila.
yes, and then
scale down lalo.
Actually, ang mas scary doon is you're dealing with that exchange rate and the oil crisis, which very much now is going up and subject to uncertainty when will this end. Pero ang inaabangan pa nating isang mas nakakatakot ay yung wage hike. Why? Kasi yung wage hike, permanent eh. Yung oil tsaka exchange rate, magpa-fluctuate yan, down, etc. Baka next month, 59 na lang tayo, we don't know. Pero once you implement the minimum wage increase, that's already permanent until God knows when.
On that note, again, recently na-approve yung wage hike increase. But with inflation, as she already asked, like the small businesses, how do you see this, the cause and effect relationship, how do you see this affecting everything full circle?
So it's really a paradox. So one, we try to understand why they implement it in the first place. No? So they implement in the first place because our government is so concerned that we were running out of budget for our basic necessities, for us to live humanely. No? So kaya kailangan, magdagdag tayo ng additional 12% in our minimum wage. No? So the intention was there. But in economics, usually, good intentions without economics lead to worse outcomes. No? So, for example, so you're trying to increase that so that the consumers will have more budget. But where will you get that budget? You will get that from the producers. So yung demand mo, tinatry mo increase para magkaroon ng pang-priming sa economy, etc. Pero yung supply side mo will actually be forced to actually bite the bullet of higher wages. So if that is not afforded or cannot be done, cannot be absorbed by our MSMEs, then they will be forced to close shops or they will try to digitalize and not employ more laborers and employ more computers, which is actually running against the intention, the very intention of actually benefiting the laborers. Because our businesses will now be disincentivized to hire more and to pay more because they will try to, cut down on their labor supply. And so what will happen? So our supply, our business production will actually shrink. So when supply is less and demand is high, what will happen? Price will even go higher. And that will actually now compounds the problem because we are actually implementing the wage hike because prices are high. But it will also lead to prices getting higher because businesses will be closing shops. So, but
or they will increase their business cost.
Pass it on to
and
the
then pass
consumer?
it on. And then inflation.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle, no? So, kasi nga, dapat ito, it's part of an integrated solution that, you don't need minimum wage. You're supposed to actually get the taxes and give it through the conditional cash transfers. But the problem is, we borrowed so many trillions so that we can actually buy time waiting for the infrastructure to get completed. So that we will now stop the conditional cash transfer so that the infrastructure, once completed, will generate more business activities and jobs. But the problem is we woke up one day that many of this infrastructure have not been actually done. And so what will happen? We will have to extend our conditional cash transfer. But in the case of our debt to GDP ratio already increasing to 61 to 65% of GDP. The threshold is 60 to get worried and 70% for you to be alarmed. So we are already in that midpoint of being worried or being alarmed. So will we borrow more to actually
push the infrastructure?
And push more cash transfer so that our poor can actually afford higher prices of goods and basic goods and services. Hindi na ngayon. So kaya ang introduction na ngayon ay minimum wage.
Yeah.
Increase mo yung minimum wage.
But to your point, what else can the government do? Kasi I remember talking to you about this. Yes, ayuda can boost the economy kasi may spending, etc. But what else? What about fuel subsidies? Diba? Are these also helpful when it comes to boosting the spending?
Yes, it's actually part of our budget. So again, the Senate hearing actually gave us the data that it actually took them 45 days to actually disburse 45% of what was already approved for that. Kasi it's poorest of the poor. May kasabihan tayo na aanuhin mo pa ang damo kung patay na ang kabayo. So, ang tagal-tagal magkumpleto ng infrastructure. So, kailangan mong iayuda yan ng iayuda. So, but what else can the government do? So, in light of higher prices, again, may cost ka, may income ka, may budget ka. So, we mentioned negative 40% ang underspending ng government on infrastructure. So, we really have to ramp up. There is no bigger solution than actually ramping up infrastructure spending. Kasi infrastructure is the mother of all industries. So you really ramp up so that you will have additional jobs and income for 4.7 million workers in the construction industry. And then when that particular portion of our labor force will have money, then that will actually have the demand pool for everything else for all the sectors. So that's what you have to do. And then second, then let's actually accelerate the implementation of the e-Government Act so that let's make all our services in government digitized. No? We're talking about multiple shops na naging one-stop shop. Yung friend natin from PESA said, "Sir, dapat nga no-stop shop." So dapat nasa internet na lang lahat so that yung mga smaller businessmen, we're the number one retail e-commerce growth in the world for the last 3 years. So if we can actually facilitate more digital government services, then actually yung mga sinabi nga ni Secretary ng DSWD, yung mga poor, hindi naman dahil tamad sila nahihirapan lang talaga. But if you actually facilitate more smaller e-commerce businesses for them, and then yung mga logistics arrangements, dealing with logistics-related government services. Naku, napakada. Bureau of Customs, diba, etc., etc. No? So, but I'm not saying it's all bad. No? So, maraming ginagawa ang customs ngayon, tinutuloy nila yung digitalization. But please, do it this year kasi we will be happy to achieve 3% GDP growth for this year. So that's one of the slowest in Southeast Asia.
Of course, for the average Filipino, the average consumer, their main concern is when will we feel the relief? Do you see any potential late year relief? You touched on remittances earlier, but in terms of just alleviating the burden on the Filipino consumer, what's your projection?
Kaya we ran out of recommendation in relation to ano. So what we've been telling the University of Asia and the Pacific, especially Dr. Villegas, has actually written several articles already. No? So for the big companies, the conglomerates, those who have more money sa mga families na well off, let's all just band together and address, because 6 months you cannot expect in yung
drastic
less
change.
than 6 months natin.
No way.
Forget about we're naturally optimistic in the university, but over the next 5.5 months, wala na po mangyayaring recovery. 3% is very happy for our GDP, for our economy. But what is the problem now? We have doubled our hunger rate. And therefore, that will contribute more to the shrinkage of brains of our children, especially to the lower income and poor families. And that cannot wait. So we really need to feed the poor right now, while we're waiting for the government to put their acts together to really, spend everything that they have collected from us. Otherwise, they should be stopping receiving our tax payments so that we can spend it ourselves.
All right, thank you so much for your time and insights, University of Asia and the Pacific economist Ronilo Balberan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. I'm Angela Lagunzad-Castro.
We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. I'm Cesca Litton-Kalaw.
Let's make the day matter. See you again tomorrow.
Kapatid, we are One News.
All sides, all the time.